This is part of the globalist attempted coup, in my opinion, and it's coming at us from all directions.
The Chinese government is now cracking down even more so on Catholicism in China. The latest is that they have taken to banning even online catechesis not controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. In addition to that, we still have the situation with bishops missing, and there's a Catholic freedom activist in China who is dying behind bars, 77-year-old Jimmy Lai. Stay tuned for this interview with Reggie Littlejohn. Reggie, so good to be with you.
Oh, it's great to be with you too. Thank you, John Henry.
Let's begin as we always do with the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Now, Reggie, you're very well known to our fans for your work in China particularly, but you've also started this anti-globalist alliance. And how has that new work that you're into affected what you're doing now? And it's brought you sort of back to China as well.
It started with China and it ends with China because, as you know, I began Women's Rights Without Frontiers to stop forced abortion in China under the one-child policy. We are continuing to save baby girls from sex-selective abortion and abandonment and poverty, and also abandoned widows. And during that time, I became very familiar with Chinese-style totalitarianism and tactics, and I saw them being exported worldwide through the World Health Organization during COVID. And I think we had a whole interview about that. But now I'm coming back to China through Anti-Globalist International with the situation regarding Jimmy Lai, who is a world leader. I believe he's a man of heroic virtue, a Catholic activist who, as you just said, appears to be in danger of dying in prison. And this, again, comes right back to China and their denigration of the dignity of the human being, and also their harsh crackdown on freedom of speech.
What's going on with Jimmy Lai right now? Why is his health in danger? What's happening?
Before we talk about that, for those who don't know who Jimmy Lai is, he's an amazing person. So his family, they were wealthy in China. Then they lost all their wealth, and became extremely impoverished under communism. And then Jimmy escaped to Hong Kong. He was a stowaway at age 12, arrived in Hong Kong. The day he arrived, they put him at work in a factory. He's just started with absolutely nothing. Was self-educated, rose through the ranks, created, like a Giordano brand of clothing, made a lot of money, and then decided that when Tiananmen Square happened, he decided that he needed to establish the Apple Daily. And that was like the only pro-democracy news outlet in Hong Kong, and was just cataloging everything that happened on Tiananmen Square. Jimmy Lai was very wealthy, but he led protests, was there during the umbrella protests, all the other protests, and was harshly critical of the Chinese Communist Party, especially when they started this national security law to crack down on dissent and free speech. And he has been in prison in solitary confinement since December of 2020. So it's going on 5 years. This 77-year-old man by himself, 23 hours a day. He gets out 1 hour a day. According to his son, Sebastian Lai, he does not have access to natural light, that there is no heating or air conditioning in his cell. So that in Hong Kong, in the summers, it's very hot. That cell can get up to 95 degrees. Jimmy Lai has heart problems. He has diabetes. And, they are denying him access to the Catholic Mass. And all of this was just for exercising freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. But he feels that everything he has, everything he is, he owes to Hong Kong, and that he owes freedom his life. That is a quote from him. Also a man of great faith and drawing strength from God to help him through this struggle.
This sounds unreal. He's been in jail since 2020 in solitary. How is he surviving in just in terms of mentally, 23 hours a day, mostly in the dark? You're getting, that's just really tough. Many people, I don't know, could have survived that at all, let alone a 77-year-old man. What is his spiritual life like that he's able to sustain that?
According to his son, and according to him, I mean, I've watched, hours of interviews of him. He's a Catholic convert. His wife is a passionate, very devout Catholic. And he believes that as long as he is standing for truth and he's doing the right thing, that God will give him the strength. Again, that is a quote from him. And so he's doing the right thing. He could have left during all these protests and everything, and it became very clear that they were after him, that he would likely be jailed. He could have left Hong Kong. He could have. He's also a British citizen. He could have come to the United States. He could have gone any number of places. He's a very wealthy man. He made a lot of money as an entrepreneur in Hong Kong. Could have led a wonderful, peaceful, wealthy life with his family, just living a lovely life, and he would not leave. He said in one of the interviews, he said, somebody said to him, "So when are you leaving Hong Kong?" And he said, I'm a troublemaker. I can't leave. I can't make trouble and then leave. Okay. So he knew. He said in an interview that it was very likely that he would go to jail. I don't know if he has a Bible. I think he does have spiritual books. And I think that he does spiritual writing. And so he's not completely in the dark. I said he didn't have any natural light, so I don't know what they gave him. But and so that's how he's surviving. He's surviving the way that saints in the past have survived. It wasn't St. John of the Cross in like a closet for I don't know how long. And how do they survive?
You mentioned he's a British citizen. What about the British government? Why aren't they intervening?
The British government and the U.S. government, and even Donald Trump himself has said, that he completely disagrees with the treatment of Jimmy Lai, and that he's going to try to help get him out. And he's, if anybody can get him out, President Trump can get him out. And that's why I have this petition online for President Trump and Keir Starmer, who's the head of the British government, and other world leaders to join together to take decisive action to get Jimmy Lai out before he dies in prison. And there are some people who will say, I was just watching an interview a few minutes ago of a China expert who said, "Oh, they're not going to let him die in prison because it would be so bad for him. Then he would really be a martyr." That is really not. I'm sorry. I have a lot of respect for this expert, but that's naive. I mean, Liu Xiaobo was also, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and they let him die in prison. They don't care. They just feel that they can get away with anything, with impunity because they can. And to me, really, the only decisive action that world leaders can take is economic sanctions of some sort. Are world leaders willing to actually say there are going to be trade repercussions for you, China, if you don't let him out now, and they can just talk about it as like a humanitarian thing. It's like he needs to get out of jail. He needs to come to the UK or the US or wherever he wants to go for treatment for his diabetes and treatment for his heart problems, And the Chinese government does have a history sometimes of letting people out for humanitarian medical reasons.
Wow. What are your hopes with the petition? How are you going to deliver that? How's that going to go?
Well, my hope is that, we're kind of launching it right now, John Henry, on your show. My hope is that we will get, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of signatures all over the world. And that we will be able to have press conferences and be able to deliver these signatures to, President Trump, to Keir Starmer. I'm going to be going to Brussels to speak at the European Parliament briefly in a couple of weeks, and I'm in the process of hopefully setting up some some meetings with people there to see what the European Parliament can do.
The church in China is suffering, has been suffering, but continues to. China, a lot of people like to say, oh, China's coming out of it. It's becoming more free. It seems to me it's the opposite. What's going on of late?
The most recent thing is what you had mentioned, is that there's a new code of conduct for religious clergy. They just released this, that clergy must, quote, love the motherland and support Chinese leadership of the Communist Party of China and its socialist system, and they are therefore banned from preaching and performing religious rituals on live broadcasts. So it's not just that. It's not just that they're banned from live broadcasts. They also say that they can't evangelize minors, that there will be no more seasonal camps for minors on the internet. They're banned from raising funds online. You know, you want to build a building, you can't raise money online. And if you go against it, they will recommend suspending or revoking your religious status, which would mean, I guess, laicizing a priest who disagrees with that. So this is just the latest in just the ongoing horrific persecution of Catholics and Protestants in China.
The restrictions they already have on Catholics in China are unreal. They can't bring them to church if they're children. How does this even work in practice? It's the most bizarre thing. They're pretending to be free, but yet it's the most restrictive thing on earth.
Well, not only that, but they have surveillance cameras in the churches so that they can see everybody who is there. You're required to be registered, which means that they know exactly who belongs to that church. There have been reports that they have taken down, for example, the Ten Commandments and put up either Mao Zedong or Xi Jinping quotes from Mao Zedong or Xi Jinping. I am aware of, this was some years ago, when we were just starting our campaign to save widows in China. There was a widow that we read a report about who the government was going to give her some kind of a tiny stipend, but it was at least something. I mean, these widows have nothing, right? But they would require her to remove all her crucifix and all religious imagery from her home, and she refused to do it. So I don't know. These people are true heroes because a lot of them, are seriously in need. And I think you probably know, as you may have heard me say, that elder suicide in China is steeply on the rise, and especially elderly widows are committing suicide. So they're really in desperate need, and then to be able to turn down money that they could use for food because they want to keep their religious imagery in their home is to me very heroic.
It's very heroic, but it's also hugely emblematic of what the Chinese Communist government's all about. If they're willing to pay somebody, but only under the condition that they remove the statues of Our Lady and the crucifix from their home, that tells us everything we need to know. Reggie, where can people go to sign up for the petition?
Antiglobalist.net. Antiglobalist, one word, .net. And right now, the Free Jimmy Lai petition is at the very top of the homepage. You won't have to search for it. So please sign the petition. What that will do is it will put you in touch with me. You'll get onto our electronic newsletter and you'll get updates about that situation and other situations that are threatening our freedom because of the globalist coup that is being effectuated right now if we don't resist.
The most repeated phrase in Scripture is "do not be afraid." We are called to speak the truth, to proclaim the gospel, and to live our lives without fear. For the past 3 years, we've brought this mission to the very heart of the church. At the Rome Life Forum, you won't just hear truth proclaimed, you'll have the chance to ask your questions directly to the speakers. This is your opportunity to engage, to challenge, and to go deeper into the battles we face today. Fear not. Her immaculate heart will triumph.
There's something else I wanted to ask you about. It relates actually to China, to censorship, almost China exporting this kind of censorship to the West. It's never going to look exactly the same. What's going on right now in Canada and in Europe is the same thing under different names again. They're calling it the Online Harms Act in Canada that's going forward. In England, in Europe, they're calling it the EU Digital Services Act. Both of these pieces of legislation, in the EU one is EU-wide, they want to restrict freedoms, but all under wonderful sounding things. It's like online safety and making a safe space for people. Of course, to all pro-family activists, that language is very familiar. That's the same way we got to massive restrictions on freedom of speech, freedom of the faith, to practice the faith inside schools. Because remember, the LGBT movement did all of that safety language. But this is now being proposed online. And really, obviously, for LifeSite, we're concerned, the organization's concerned, because we could actually end up in trouble with the law. The penalties that are being proposed for Canada, at least were last time this was proposed, it was $70,000 fine and house jail, basically, confinement. So your thoughts on this move that's happening right now, Canada and the EU?
Yeah, I can understand why you're concerned, and I am concerned also. So yeah, this relates to China. This is like Jimmy Lai is willing to go to jail in order to protect free speech and stand up for the truth. And it's just straight out of the CCP playbook that Canada and the EU are trying to clamp down on free speech, the so-called hate speech. Problem is that the hate speech, I understand, is not defined in either of these documents. And they also want to clamp down on so-called disinformation. And again, that word disinformation is one that's used by the World Health Organization, where they are wanting to require nations to clamp down on medical disinformation, not define basically anything that counters their narrative, their perspective. And I agree with what you said about, traditional people who believe in traditional values, people who are pro-life, people who are pro-family. That there are people who would consider that belief system and the expression of that belief system to be hate speech. And so what's going to happen then with people who are pro-life, people who are pro-family in Europe, if they express that, could be very similar to what's happening to Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong right now. And not only that, but the House Judiciary Committee came out with an opinion that this could affect Americans too. So that, for example, I actually am going over to Brussels in about 10 days, and I think I'm going to raise this issue. I mean, it's pretty darn important. I'm going over on another issue, but this it requires the big media platforms like Google, Facebook, Twitter, all the rest of them to censor speech that's considered to be hate speech. And what that means is that somebody who is posting things in the United States or Canada could be censored over in Europe. And then who knows what the repercussions might be back for us in our home countries. So this is going to have a massive, massive chilling effect.
Yeah, what's interesting is they tried at first to cancel, I don't know about for you, but for Canada, the regulations were impossible for television and radio. All the official channels were blocked. We had basically zipped up the publications as well in terms of newspapers. So the internet, of course, brought this massive amount of freedom. This effort now is seeking to do kind of the same thing. It wants to regulate the internet so as to push out those who are creating waves of truth regarding life, regarding family, regarding faith. This is just unreal.
Jimmy Lai said that you have to have truth in order to be able to have choice, and you have to have choice in order to have freedom. And so that's what they're doing. This is part of the globalist attempted coup, in my opinion. and it's coming at us from all directions. It's coming at us from the World Health Organization. Now, Canada has a bill. The EU is pushing out this Digital Services Act, and the whole idea is to surveil us, okay? Because in order to censor us, they're going to need it to surveil everything that we say online. And then there will be people who are either shadow banned or just banned outright, and there will be other people who will be fined. It could be a substantial fine, and I don't know whether they're going to have prison sentences, for people who seriously transgress their censorship. But we really, really need to resist this, because if we don't, we will absolutely be succumbing to a digital gulag.
It's challenging in countries where we've had liberal rule for so long. It's almost impossible. It feels that way in Canada, in much of Europe, yet you're still going to Brussels. Why? What's your hopes there? Do you think you can stir up enough anti-globalist alliance among those you speak to?
The official reason is that I have been told that I will be given like 3 minutes to speak at the launch of Make Europe Healthy Again. So there's Make America Healthy Again, and Europe is launching Make Europe Healthy Again. So this is going to have to do with the World Health Organization. It's going to have to do with, freedom, health freedom, not having vaccine mandates and mask mandates and all of that. And there are only 2 listed speakers, but there are other speakers that are sort of lined up that we're going to each get 3 minutes to speak. But while I'm there, I'm also going to hopefully be setting up meetings with members of the European Parliament about Jimmy Lai and how to support him. And now I'm also going to want to be talking to people about the Digital Services Act, because this needs to be opposed immediately before it's set in place. And, this is the thing. Once something is set in place, then you can't oppose it anymore, because opposing it will be disinformation or hate speech. If you say this is wrong, it's going to entrap us, and they say, okay, well, that's hate speech, $70,000, you do it again, and we'll, throw you in jail. I mean, I have no idea what their penalties are going to be.
They're laid out in Canada. I'm not sure if we're further along or not, but our proposal, this is, mind you, it was enough even to alarm the Canadians. And that takes quite a bit. It took us a long, long time. But once we got to the truckers with COVID, it was enough. But even now, now those same truckers are being jailed, and they're running to the US for asylum. But it does. The Canadians, it takes a bit. But this particular law is the third time trying. So we'll see. We'll see what comes. And final words for us, Reggie, on how to fight for freedom, because that's the fight you're in. You're doing this. A lot of people feel helpless. They see this going on. They see big government wherever they are, in Europe, in Canada. In America, there's a bit more fight. It helps to have a leader that at least in some ways pushes for freedom. What do you say to the regular Joe in terms of still fighting?
Mother Teresa, in the very beginning of her ministry, she began by picking up one single man dying of leprosy off the street and praying with him, cleaning him up and praying with him as he died. And she said that if she had thought about establishing some huge ministry in 123 countries or more at this point, she never would have had the gumption to do it. So what I would say is, God has created every one of us for good works that we should walk in them, and to pray to God to show you where you fit in. Certainly, whoever is in front of you, like this dying leper was right in front of her, right? But you've got to do something. You can't do nothing. So pick something. Okay, you've listened to this interview now. What do you care about? What stirs your heart? Is it Jimmy Lai and the injustice to him? Is it the European Digital Services Act, or the Canadian Act? Pick an issue that is important to you, and then connect with the person that is the head of that issue. I would encourage people who care about Jimmy Lai to go to antiglobalist.net, sign the petition, and that's just something you can do. But then something else you can do is you can take this interview, for example, and share it. and you can like it and you can comment on it, which actually, increases the algorithm so that more people will see it. That's the least that you can do. And that is something you can do that is free. It doesn't take very much time, and it's a beginning, and then see what the next step is that the Lord presents to you.
And I would add to that roster of duties to pray. Pray is the starting place. And from there, he'll inspire you to do what you do. Reggie Littlejohn, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. And please pray for Jimmy Lai. Thank you.
Aloha everyone, this is Jason Jones for LifeSite News. We hope you enjoyed this video. For more content like this, check the link in the description. You can also connect with us on social media to stay up to date with the latest news on life, faith, family, and freedom. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.